Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Chris Fleming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Confident Retirement Podcast, brought to you by LPF Advisors. I'm your host here, as always, Chris Fleming. And today I have the honor of welcoming Cary Jacobson to the podcast. Her self-named law firm represents individuals and families looking for best case dispute resolution to keep the drama out of divorce. They are committed to navigating the complexities in search of long-lasting solutions that positively impact their clients. That sounds like good stuff. Cary, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's jump in. So you have an interesting background. I was checking it out online. I wasn't stalking you. I was checking it out. So take me through how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So long story short, I've known since at least middle school that I was going to be an attorney. The progress or the exact type of attorney changed over time.
Okay.
But I am a child of divorce and ultimately went to undergrad, had sociology, psychology background. And then when I ultimately made it to law school, family law was an absolute automatic fit. I have a mediation background as well. I've actually been mediating since high school. And so bringing those to the family law arena has been absolute fit.
Yeah, it seems like those two things would really marry with each other. So not to get too personal, but I'm just curious, was it that being a child of divorce, was that the reason that you picked family law? Because I was going to ask you that later, like how did you come to decide on the focuses of your practice?
I'm sure that it had an impact. It wasn't necessarily, a conscious decision because I went through this. But I believe that, it has impacted me in certain ways. And while my parents did not have, a horrible divorce, I've seen some really bad ones, it also could have been better in some ways. And so as a child of divorce, my goal is to help other families who are going through it not to have a negative impact on their kids.
Okay. So I guess it was kind of that plus all of the interest that you had with mediation and stuff prior that led you to decide, or you're saying it was almost preordained that you were going to focus on family law. Do we want to go with that?
I think so. I mean, Between undergrad and law school, I had an opportunity I got into real estate for a while. I did some commercial real estate, had a chance to work at, a Fortune 500 company, and that it just wasn't the fit. Yep. I knew that corporate structure was not going to be something that I would thrive in.
Okay. I think I'm getting that theme from a lot of mediators and divorce attorneys where the corporate thing just wasn't going to work out and they needed to find another channel for their talents. Okay. So if you could go back in time maybe and have a conversation with the younger you or give the younger you some advice, what do you think you would tell them? Something you know now you wish you knew when you started out?
Networking and how important it is. And also the importance of systems. Even though you don't even when you're a one-person show, how important it is to document systems. Now that we've grown somewhat, we have recognized how important that is and are really doing our best to implement those. But I think those would be the biggest things as far as a business owner.
Okay. Yeah, that certainly helps you scale. You can do more with the same amount of people. Efficiencies, definitely. Okay, so let's get in a little bit into about how you practice. So obviously there are some real fears that people have that they commonly encounter with divorce, especially if it's the first time they're going through it. So maybe share what you run into as being people's biggest fears when they initially meet with you.
So I will start with saying that our practice does not do any contested litigation. So we exclusively work with clients who are looking to resolve issues outside of the court process.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Yeah. So I think that is one distinction that really sets us apart. And even in that scenario, knowing that we don't do litigation, I think that there really still is a fear and a connotation that attorneys are going to make the process more complicated. Yeah. And so many people choose the divorce mediation process specifically because they don't want attorneys involved. Because even though I am an attorney, that's not my role in the mediation setting. And so many of them, even though we recommend it, will choose not to have their own individual counsel because they're worried about how those individuals may potentially inflame the situation and make it more complicated than they want it to be.
Okay. And that can happen.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to billable hours and things of that nature. But we're going to assume everybody has the client's best interest in mind. Right. Yeah. Okay. So then maybe along those same lines, are there some big misconceptions that people have about the process or what your role is or what you can do?
I think so. So we're in Maryland. We still have the misconception that parties have to be separated for a year before their divorce can be final. And that's no longer the case. That's been changed for a while. So as long as they have a full and final agreement, they can get their divorce, even if they're still living together. So that's probably the most common. I think the other common misconception is simply that we're going to make that process more complicated. And really, we try to be as efficient as possible. I think the other piece that makes our ability to negotiate an agreement or help parties negotiate an agreement is that we don't have the litigation side necessarily in mind. So we really are trying, I think, those are two different ways of thinking. And we really do try to help people resolve those issues without having to think about, the worst case scenario.
Well, Lord knows that if you're on the litigation track, it's definitely going to take longer in most cases. Okay. All right. So along those same lines, why don't you describe an ideal client that you would have? If you could draw a picture or describe them to us, please do that.
Yes. So it's the couple that has one or more minor kids that really are focused on how can they be the best co-parents that they can be, making sure that their kids are the center of attention and the center of the process, and that they want to maintain their co-parenting relationship after it's all said and done. And really, in those scenarios, we simply guide them through the process so that they can make informed decisions that are going to be best for them and their families. Okay.
And I think you've kind of described this, but we haven't put a term on it. And maybe you can tell me, yeah, that's what I've been talking about. But you use this term alternative dispute resolution on your website. So maybe just describe or define that for us. What does that entail?
Sure.
Is it just not going the litigation route, or you tell us?
It is just not going the litigation route. There's actually several different options, different ways that people can resolve their differences outside of court. And we handle lots of them. So the first is divorce mediation, which is where the two parties work with either myself or an associate as the neutral. And our role is simply to facilitate the conversation, help give them suggestions, not advocate for one person or the other. A second option is collaborative divorce. And so that's another alternative dispute resolution process. It's more of a team-based approach where both parties have their own collaborative divorce attorney, and we may have other professionals involved, typically mental health professionals, such as that are divorce coaches, and sometimes financial neutrals, whether it's a CPA, a financial planner, someone who is working as a neutral between the parties. We've also had situations where we've had a neutral business evaluator, potentially child specialists. We can bring in real estate agents, brokers, whatever the parties need. So that's a second option. And then the third option that we commonly use is simply settlement negotiation. So many times, one spouse may come to us and say, we're in the process of getting divorced. We kind of have an idea of what we want to do, but we want to make it official. So we will then prepare the separation agreement so that they have a legal document that encompasses what they've already agreed upon. Mm. There are some scenarios where the parties' communication has broken down. And so in those scenarios, we will represent our client and really negotiate with the other party's attorney.
Okay.
So, but the intention is to keep all of these issues outside of court so that at least these parties are making the decision and not letting a judge do it.
Okay. All right. And I can imagine where if you bring litigation in, the stress level could potentially go up because then you feel like a lot of it is out of your control and in the hands of somebody who's going to decide. So I'm sure you kind of help. This is a big life transition for people. So how do you help distress the process or maybe mitigate the drama? Because that's one of the things that you pride yourselves on is trying to de-stress the situation, keep the drama out. How do you do that?
One is making sure that the parties have the resources that they need. So it could be that they need to talk to a financial individual. It could be that we will direct them to a divorce coach if emotions are high. What maybe potentially that they work with a therapist, either individual counseling or discernment counseling before they make the decision to move forward so that they're both on the same page. The other thing is that we are efficient in the process and really try to ensure that our client goals are being met and looking at the big picture.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I like how you said that. Now, I do find it interesting that you are part of a collaborative professionals group.
Yes.
So tell me more about that and maybe the advantages and the benefits, because I can see where that would be really helpful in situations.
Yes. So we have a local practice group. I currently am the president this year. And the role of the practice groups is to have educational content, usually once a month for luncheons. And it's a group of collaboratively trained practitioners. We have everything, like I said before, attorneys, financials, mental health professionals, real estate agents, mortgage brokers. We had a real estate appraiser come to a meeting this week, so that we can tap into that knowledge base. Mm. And because all of these are individuals that could potentially work with couples who are, going through a collaborative divorce or some other alternative dispute resolution, they're familiar with the types of challenges that these individuals will have. Mm-hmm. So, we have a network of people that we can trust that are also going to be like-minded, settlement-minded, and want to help, couples resolve differences as efficiently as possible.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure it took a while to get that built up, but once you have those people in place, it's nice to be able to lean on that, especially when everyone's of a like mind.
Right.
Perfect. Absolutely. Okay. So let's shift gears just a little bit. I'm curious, going forward, what do you kind of see as the biggest opportunity for your practice in the future? Yeah. The big goal or the next thing that you're reaching for?
Definitely expanding our base. So as a mediator, we are not exclusively bound by just working with couples in Maryland. So we can work with couples outside of Maryland. Mm. We are only practicing law in Maryland. So if we're negotiating an agreement or that sort of thing, that is within the confines of Maryland. However, because of the virtual nature of our practice, because we are completely virtual, we can help people all across the state. And fortunately, one wonderful thing that came out of COVID is that many of our courts are actually doing the uncontested divorces virtually as well. So it really allows us to help anyone throughout the state to finalize their divorce. Their hearing is 10 minutes. It's by Zoom. That in and of itself reduces the stress. People aren't having to drive to court, wait 2 hours for their hearing, and really be in that setting. They can be in the comfort of their own home. Yeah. I think that has been extremely impactful on people.
And they only have to look presentable from the waist up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. They can be in their car.
Right.
Okay.
You've probably seen everything.
Yes.
All right. So on the flip side of that, maybe what's the biggest challenge in the business or an obstacle that you really want to overcome that you haven't yet?
I think it's, not having the reach that we want to have. Yeah. So we really are on a growth trajectory and hoping to bring in more clients and service them because we have put those systems in place and we want people to know that these are processes that are available to them and know that they don't have to go to court, right away. So educating the public, I think, is also one of those.
Okay. Yeah, that's always difficult. Well, you can educate them, but then they also have to understand.
Right.
And you can also lead the horse to the water, but they have to choose to drink. All right. So as part of that expansion, if people want to learn more about you, Cary, or contact you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So our website is number one. So it's jacobsonfamilylaw.com. We are also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.
Okay. Awesome. So there's no excuse.
Right.
If you can't find Cary's friend, we're everywhere. That's right. When you wake up, the first TikTok you see, I like it. Listen, okay, so Cary, I want to thank you for being here with me today. This has been a really good conversation, lots of good information in a short period of time. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we hope to bring the confidence of everyday people on the road to financial success and personal success to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Take care. Be well. Cary, thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Chris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.